What's up, everyone? We're back. Another stream. Miami Dolphins, mandatory minicamp, day 1 and 2, which I think ends up being this is going to be the last of the days because the third day they're just doing a walkthrough now, which honestly to me, it seems like a good sign. It seems like, they took the first 2 days seriously if they're willing to, pass on the third day. Usually, coaches will go extra over the top when teams are kind of slacking. So good signs. I feel like a lot of what we heard has been pretty positive across the board. And kind of sucks though, because it's gonna be a while until we see some football again. Until training camp rolls around, and we got to learn some stuff through some of the medias the first 2 days, through McDaniel's talking points, Tua interviews, Tyreek and Waddle. We'll go over a lot of that stuff, and other little interesting things that we can see throughout that. Hopefully, when people get in here, we'll really dig into it. Maybe I'll show this. I saw the Dolphins post this on Twitter, actually. Let's look at this. Here's a Mike White bomb, because Tua hasn't been practicing in 11-on-11s, but apparently, he's been dealing in 7-7s, mainly due to the contract stuff. But here's, a deep bomb down to Waddle. Apparently, Waddle's just been absolutely dominating, which no surprise to me. I think Waddle is just one of the best receivers in this league, and from everything we've seen from him, it looks like he's even more explosive. He's been working on his game. What's up, Zim? How you doing? Oh yeah, I did get a haircut. My hair was getting out of control. I prefer having shorter hair, but sometimes I just let it go a little too long. How you guys doing? What's up? What's up? How we feeling about, last day of the mandatory minicamp, because Day 3, they're doing a walkthrough now from what we've been told from the media. Let me just mute that real quick. A good throw from Mike White here. Down to Waddle. Probably going to go through some of the stuff we've seen. Here's actually, let's throw up another clip by now. We'll show their big clip from yesterday, because I didn't stream yesterday. There he is. There's Tua, which I want to talk about Tua because obviously there's the big thing about the contract, which, we can talk about a little bit. But I think and there's Craycraft making a great catch. Wide receiver battle, going to be interesting. Craycraft, we've talked about it. Will, he be a guy that gets cut because they think they could keep him on the practice squad, and he'll be like their 7th receiver from the practice squad and actually see playing time? I think there's potential for that. And also, any of those guys can really. Mandatory walkthrough. Yeah, I think to me it's a good sign that they're not doing, they didn't feel the need to do the third day, because the first 2 days to me had to have gone well for them to feel comfortable enough to do that. So, kind of funny. I'm sure some people will be mad. But yeah, good throw there from Tua. I want to talk about the rubber band theory that Tua discussed. But she basically, basically he talks about basically the rubber band theory is your hips coming through, before your upper body does. And, it creates that rubber band effect. Just helps your release. It's snaps out of your hand. It makes everything look more smooth. Really flies out of that. And I feel like it looks that way. You can definitely see the difference between the throwing motions if you go back and look at Tua's from the past. And it just seems more effortless, which I think definitely helps him. And then obviously we've talked about Tua looking pretty different, losing the weight, which can also help his game. So I definitely look forward to that. I just want to scroll down here. This is from day 1. I'm reading some of Travis Wingfield's tweets. I think Wingfield does a good job with a lot of the minicamp wrap-ups, because he actually studies the game. So it's nice to look at some of his thoughts when he's there. What's up, Irving? How you doing? Basically, he's saying Tua with another clinic. That was day 1. Or this was the day 1 one, I think, yeah. He said Tua with another clinic. He shot one to Achane 20 yards down the field between 2 defenders. You could hear the ball pop when Achane caught it. Some sizzle on the throw. I like Achane getting more work in the receiving game. I feel like we've talked about it. We've talked about the Dolphins' struggle when it comes to last year when it did struggle, when the team wasn't executing as much. Down the line, the team's really focused on taking away Tyreek and Waddle, and I think having players that's why they added players like OBJ who can win versus man-to-man. Players like Malik Washington, Taj Washington, they beat man-to-man coverage out of college on third down situations. They can do that, and then adding people that can work like those underneath areas, like a running back like Achan, Jonnu Smith, who brings that physicality. They really tried to attack that area, and as we've talked about, like the O-line stuff, they feel like that's what they can get away with within this offense. It's not something they value as much. They feel like Tua's skill set Tua's skill set specifically thrives when he has great receivers around him, but he can also still thrive with a below average offensive line just due to, his ability with his eyes manipulation, how they use play action. Obviously, it's a scheme thing, and then just how quickly he gets rid of the ball. Which, less chance of injury doing a walkthrough on day 3. Yeah, I think that's, another reason that they decided to go for it. No need to risk anything. I think staying healthy is very, very important. 2 with saltiness. Yeah, it definitely, I think the biggest thing with the interview is it wasn't like a mandatory thing. So like he wanted to talk to the media, and then it seemed like he didn't want to talk to them while he was there. So yeah, it definitely seemed like, hey, he just wants to make his point about it. I think that it gets done though. I think it gets done either like right before training camp starts, or I think in July we should expect to see a contract. I feel like everything we've heard, it's like it's gonna happen. I'm not too worried about it. It feels like, he's their guy. It's just all the little details that go into it. We should have Stouters up this year with his ability to scramble when needed. We'll definitely see, because if you go back and watch Tua, whether it was out of college or even like early on in his career in the NFL, like even for the Dolphins, coming off the hip surgery, he was still creating more plays with his legs before last year. So I think last year was definitely the most limited he was with his legs. He's never going to be like some elite option there, but I think having that ability to create more, specifically just when the pocket breaks down and he can go outside, maybe make a throw, I think that would be huge for the offense. Like I think they added all those pieces that I talked about earlier that I think will help out the offense overall, but I also think Tua can really help out I think that's where Tua could help out the offense the most, because he already does all the other things really well, working within structure. If he could make some more plays out of structure, I think that would really could help elevate the Dolphins offense to the next level. Tua can and does scramble, but he had to cut out last year to set to make the receivers. Yeah, I think the injury thing, I think the weight thing and the injury thing kind of go hand in hand, because he put on the weight to stay, from getting injured, but then he didn't really get hit a ton last season, I think. And when he did get hit, I think the jiu-jitsu stuff actually showed up. Like he learned how to fall, which is kind of crazy, but it definitely helped. And I think he realized like I wasn't getting hit that much. I was getting rid of the ball quickly. And if I have a little more athleticism, as long as I make the guy miss, you're still avoiding the hits. You just gotta continue what he did last year, but have a little more twitch to his game. Because Tua was always kind of a twitchy guy in the pocket. He was never gonna, break a long run or anything. He doesn't have that kind of like speed, but he was always like quick twitch, which I think helps, if you have the pocket awareness, just ability to maneuver the pocket a little bit extra. Wingfield also said Waddle's working, making play after play. So Waddle was absolutely dominating. I think another person, they talked about Siren Neal, actually, the guy who came from the Buffalo, who was going to play as like, he's more of a special teams guy. Apparently he's been making plays. People thought, he could even be in the nickel discussion. I'm not so sure about that, but I think it's nice to, have some corner depth, especially a guy who I think is pretty likely to make the team as special teams. Nice to have a guy that can also make some plays. He said Quentin Bell was active, a guy from the practice squad last year, which I remember he was the one who, on Hard Knocks, he was doing like the Crosby role and stuff, but yeah. Jonnu Smith and Jody Fortson very involved. I feel like every like minicamp, OTAs, after every single practice, we've heard about Jody Fortson being involved, and I think that's a good sign for him. Obviously, training camp hasn't rolled around yet. This kind of doesn't, mean too much now, but you can learn little things from this stuff. It can be built upon. You can tell that Fortson kind of brings a different skill set than the other tight ends within this room, and he brings something the Dolphins kind of missed. They don't really have it in the wide receiver room, and they don't like this year, and they didn't really have it last year with like that red zone threat. So I think Fortson has a chance to obviously make the team, but also make an impact in the season. Give me some Alabama wiggle. I can give Tua some slack. Yeah, just a little bit, I mean, he came into the league with that like major hip injury, which also obviously, messed it up. And then he had the concussion, so he put on the weight. But I think this is the year where he can really elevate that part of his game to the next level. Plus, he's clearly worked on his mechanics. Everything looks a lot more smooth, which is nice. But yeah. See, and yeah, Tua's only been working on like 7-on-7s because I know the contract stuff. He didn't want to. I think that was like the compromise him and McDaniel talked about, working through 7-on-7s, not working through 11s because they're trying to figure out all the contract thing, and I think they will. He definitely he called it. He said he was antsy. And then yeah, rubber band theory, which we talked about a little bit, which is nice to see. Also, apparently, Jalen Phillips. There's the whole thing with like Omar Kelly, him saying like, "Look at him jog outside." So Phillips looks like he's getting closer and closer, which is nice. He's definitely ahead of Bradley Chubb. Like seems like decently far ahead too. What else is on here that I want to talk about? See if anything that McDaniel was saying. Coach says these not padded practices are a chance to fine tune technique and fundamentals. Obviously, like you're not gonna. It's kind of about this time of the year is really about teaching all these young guys, learning the playbook, getting these repetitions in. But yeah. It's the little things is where you kind of learn that. Talking about Tua kind of just elevating his game each season, which Tua just seemed like, I think one of the best things about Tua is he seems very coachable, which is big. Like he definitely seems like every offseason he's trying to develop what one of his, like either one or multiple of his biggest weaknesses from the previous season. And he feels like he's coming to the next season and then shown that he got better at it. So that's like, one thing that's great about Tua is like I feel like I'm always expecting him to elevate his game in some kind of way going into the same season. If Jonnu can't block a tight end, then he only good on clear passing downs. I mean, Jonnu's going to be like the main yak guy. I mean, at that position because people talk about speed when it comes to yak, which Dolphins obviously have speed, but I think there's a lot more that goes into it, and I think the Dolphins rarely want a guy that also has like that physicality, contact balance side of his game. And Jonnu is very good at absorbing contact, bouncing off those tackles. And I think that's where he's going to really bring some value to this team. Like he's not the best blocker. He's not like the worst blocking tight end I've ever seen, but Durham Smythe can get some work in and he'll definitely be out there and do some blocking stuff. But yeah. Let's see. Bouncing players trying to make tweaks/improvements for his final product of making the team. Coach says the program is built on attacking the game-like mentality. How players respond to a play, good or bad, is more valuable than the rep itself. Oh yeah, McDaniel was talking about like if he sees a player have a drop, I think he says it was like more valuable to see how they looked on the next play, which I kind of like that mentality because like in these practices, like players not trying to drop it. I think drops will happen from time to time, but like seeing how they respond is I think definitely the bigger thing than the actual drop itself. Let's see anything that they were talking about. Oh yeah, day two we talked about Jalen Waddle continues to show out this week. He caught 2 long bombs, one from Mike White, which we watched earlier. Maybe I'll go back to that actually. Here we go. And I'll watch this. Posted on Twitter not that long ago by the Miami Dolphins account. Always nice to get a little bit of content. Obviously, it's not like we're learning anything too crazy from these videos, but it's we need football. We desperately miss it. And this is during 11-on-11s. Apparently, he also had one in 7-on-7s with Tua. Looked like it was more of a straight takeoff vertical route. I don't think Tua is annoyed specifically with the Dolphins, more with the process. At least we don't do things like the Niners. I agree, Shark. I do think it's more of the process thing. I don't think he's like pissed at the Dolphins organization either. I think there's a couple different ways. I think he's kind of sick of. I think another thing was it's the process, and it's all of the process, not just it's also having to talk to the media about it, see all the people talk about it all every other day. I think he just wants the process to be over. Get his contract taken care of, and then focus on ball, He said, Travis Winkle said, for this is day 2, Tua was sharp again, saying, not sure that needs to be said anymore. It feels like Tua's looked quite sharp, even to a different level. I feel like he's always looked good for the most part when it comes to the practices, especially playing 7-on-7s. But from the videos we've seen, he definitely looks like when it comes mechanically, there definitely looks like a difference. And I want to see, once game time rolls around, how that will translate, because I think we'll see a different Tua this year. I think, we'll still see all the positives he brought from last year, but we'll see how the new mechanics helps his game, and then how the losing the weight of that will, change anything too. I think that could be huge. Definitely part I'm looking forward to. Let's see. Achane 2. Also, Achane and Tua. I think Tua, Achane, Waddle were mentioned by Travis Wingfield for both days. Looking good. Continues to make plays. And was getting open vertically, which is nice. I think those players and the tight ends continuously get mentioned. I'm really excited to see Achane this year, see him in a more expanded role, and hopefully staying healthy. Staying healthy is obviously the biggest thing. Johnny Smith caught an intermediate route, then outran the back end, thought it was a wide receiver the way he moves. Yes, that's him with the ball in his hands is where he's going to bring the most value. Let's see. I saw one Waddle target fall incomplete, and when it was with Kendall Fuller matching him step for step. That battle seems to be fun. I think even Kendall Fuller said in an interview, working against like Waddle, Tyreek, OBJ will only help him get better, which I think if you look at Fuller, I think Fuller's worst game last season was probably against the Dolphins. Like the rest of his films were really good, but most people struggle when they get put on an island with players like Tyreek and Waddle. Jordan Brooks and Anthony Walker drilled blitzing in Indies, and then both had quick pressures during team. Other guys had run stuffs too. I feel like we've heard good things about Anthony Walker, which I think is a nice thing. He's going to be that third linebacker. In my opinion, he could play, I think he's going to be more of the backup at the Mike and Will. Because Wingfield also said Cam Brown stood out today, which is interesting because he has really good size and length, and he's been known for his time at the Giants. There wasn't really any film I could find on him, but he was known for his time at the Giants as a special teams guy. So if Cam Brown makes the roster, it would be for special teams. But if you look at the Ravens defense last year, that was talked about Malik Harrison. He was a linebacker out of Ohio State. He played that Sam role and played significant snaps versus the run. And that was only when they came out in base. And the Dolphins, obviously, they're not going to run a ton of base, but that's still a package that's going to be on the team. So there's going to be a third linebacker that comes out there who would play that Sam role. I'm not quite sure, but Cam Brown does have the skill set for that. So it would be intriguing if he made the team and kind of played that Malik Harrison type role from Baltimore, because he has the length, athleticism, plays with some physicality. Apparently Jordan Colbert made a play, UDFA, the Rhode Island kid. I did a video on him. And I think, Poyer was in the orange jersey today. Him and Holland on the back end. Both, ball skills, definitely intriguing. Okay. We're arguing about Tua in the chat. A classic. A Dolphins classic. But yeah. Should I read this? I don't know if I want to read this. I've had too many arguments when it comes to Tua over the years, you just gotta move past it. Let's see. Let's here's the clip from day one to Craycraft. Great catch by Craycraft, by the way. You can kind of see that it's hard to tell from the mechanics. You can tell from his angle of release if you go back and watch. Sometimes when Tua would get I feel like his shoulders, you could see he's a lot more balanced here, and his hips are coming through before the release point too, which is big. That's kind of the difference. It's kind of hard to tell from that clip specifically, but that is something to take into notice when it comes to what he's bringing to the table. Is it possible Berrios doesn't make the team? I think so, honestly. Berrios' path to make the team is obviously as a returner. I think with the new kick return rules, the Dolphins might be interested in putting some of the other guys back there, like an Achane or a Jalen Wright, or maybe even, some of the receivers, just based on the new rules. But as a punt returner, I think they value Berrios because of his, he was really reliable last year, didn't fumble at all, did his job. But there's 8 spots, and I think there's a decent chance Berrios doesn't make the team, honestly. because I would rather keep the rookies around. How many? I would say we keep 6 receivers. Probably 3 or 4 running backs. I think we should keep 3 running backs because we also have a fullback. But the Dolphins, since McDaniel's been here, and if you look at the Niners, they've traditionally kept 4, so they're probably going to keep 4. I think they only need to keep 3, and then probably 3 tight ends. I think there's a world where they maybe keep an extra tight end, because I think they might want to keep Julian Hill and Fortson, you know. But if they're going to keep an extra spot, because usually you keep 6 receivers, 3 tight ends, 3, possibly 4 running backs. But with the team keeping the fullback, usually your team would keep 3, but the Dolphins keep 4. You might have an extra spot because you might only need to keep 2 quarterbacks on the roster this year with like the new practice squad rule. And then to me, if they were going to keep an extra spot on the offense, I would keep it at offensive line personally. Yeah, you got to include fullback because we have Ingold. Obviously, Ingold's going to make the team, and Dolphins are, you know, there's like 10-ish teams about with a fullback on the roster. Izukama will determine if Barris makes it. They have too many options as returners. Yeah, but I think when it comes to returner, I don't think they necessarily want to put a lot of those guys back there and risk injury, specifically on punt return. I'm trying to think who could replace him on punt return, you know, and be like reliable. They have to be reliable because Barrios was very reliable last season. So when it comes to Barrios, but like personally, Barrios would probably be the first receiver to go for me. And it depends, you know, it depends how camp plays out, preseason plays out. I think Taj Washington's like the intriguing one. If Taj shows out, I feel like they're gonna try to keep him on the roster. So that would, you know, push, you know, the Barrios, the Craycraft, depends how Ezukanma performs too. I think Malik Washington makes it. I like to have a wide receiver over 6 feet, just saying, well, we got one. And to me, Fortson, if he makes the roster, he's going to be considered a tight end. That's why I was thinking, you know, they just keep 6 receivers because if you keep Fortson, he's basically a pseudo receiver and he would be like a big body red zone threat. But yeah. Have you seen this offense without Tua? It's terrible. Yeah, I mean, okay, so for the negative people about Tua chat, this is how I would explain it. Because people always try to do their rankings, their list. I think when it comes down to it, every team is different. I think this is a very scheme. When you look at this team is built around Tua's strengths, and the players they put on it. The reason the team falls off without Tua is because it's built for him, and he specifically is fit for like this San Francisco style offense. The things he does are very. There's a lot of nuance to his game when it comes to like the timing, the manipulation with his eyes, his body, his upper body, his lower half, the way he's able to move defenders and then release the ball on time with anticipation. And I think to like the more casual fans, they don't really notice those things. And that's why, you know, Tua can get a bad rep. And that's why the offense typically doesn't run well without him. And then obviously like receivers like Tyreek and Waddle, great players. They're obviously going to elevate people around them, but there's a reason the other quarterbacks don't play and don't put up as good as numbers with him. Like Tyreek's putting up the best number of his career with Tua because Tua excels with those types of players. So to me, it's a marriage of talent. You know, it's a marriage of scheme and talent. McDaniel, Tua, Tyreek, Waddle, they all kind of raise each other up, and it's all, you know, all built to be the best. Teddy, oh my God. No, yo, what's up? Teddy Bridgewater was not good when he had to play. Let's see. I'm not negative toward Tua. I just don't see him as a top 3 or even top 5. I mean, I think that's fine, Kevin. Like, honestly, having him as the 11th best is, I wouldn't say a hater. Like, I'd probably have him in like. See, rankings are so tough when it comes to the players that play in like the Shanahan style systems because the systems are just so different. And I think like if you put Tua in another system, he wouldn't play as well. But if you put like some of the best QBs in this system, I don't know if they play as well as Tua within the system. So it's tough to rank them. But 11th is that bad. I've seen some rankings where Tua is. I've seen a lot of rankings where they have like Tua like 18th, which I think is crazy. So I'm not mad if you have him 11th, honestly. Yeah. Oh yeah, and Teddy had like he had a lot of screen yards that game too. The game against the Vikings, he got like a free 60 yards at the end of the game, just waddle screen. Personally, I don't really care about the stats either. Like obviously, Tua puts up insane stats. It's all about the film, and the offense clearly on the film looks a lot worse without him. Excited to see this offense seem a lot more well balanced. Hold on, sorry. Okay, cool. I'm getting blocked here for a second. There we go. Excited to see him a lot more balanced, so they can run more and pass less, more quality in the passing game and less volume. I think the Dolphins need to to me, it's not about like they just need to run more. Like to me, it comes down to they need to run more when the teams clearly don't stack the box. And there was a time last season where teams were playing too high, too deep shells. There's playing cover 2 a ton. And when that situation happens, the Dolphins need to run the ball more. I'm totally cool when they go single high, just throwing the ball over teams because teams cannot stop the Dolphins if they go single high. But when the opportunity presents itself, yes, I think they need to be more of a consistent running team. So it's just like depends on what they're seeing, My response to that V21 is that you said most of Tua's stats came against terrible defense this year. That's just not true. If you go look at they came against bad teams, a lot of his good stats, but they weren't terrible defenses. He actually faced I believe on average he was in the top 10 facing hardest defenses throughout the year, and he actually did very well against a lot of great defenses. But the teams weren't very good, but he actually had good games against. He obviously struggled versus the Chiefs and the Bills. I'm not going to argue that he definitely had some bad games. Every quarterback does, but I do think the whole narrative that he just destroys terrible teams. Yeah, we did destroy terrible teams, but didn't just have terrible defenses. A lot of those defenses are actually pretty solid. They were definitely better than their offenses. Teams never stacked the box till San Fran game. Started the year with the second toughest strength schedule, and then we didn't play anyone all year. Strength the schedule means nothing. It just depends, man. I think the whole schedule thing is a little overrated. There's yeah, a lot of the narratives that get pushed, there's Vince takes, yeah, there's killing narratives. There's a lot of narratives out there about the Dolphins, and some of them have a little bit to them, a tiny bit. But for the most part, I think they're all pretty much overblown. I feel like there's so much more context missing from those takes that bothers me about it. I'm only saying I don't feel he's being prioritized as a time not to do that. Hold on. Tua is the quarterback. I don't really see any other option, personally. I'm not trying to only have a Tua discussion because it's always turns towards Tua. I think the whole team matters a ton. I think last year there was times Tua could have stepped up and played better, but I also think some of the other best players on the team didn't show up in big time situations. I actually think I think Tyreek Hill is the best receiver in the league. He's at least top 2. Him and Jefferson are top 2 in my opinion. I don't really care which one you prefer. But to me, Tyreek was actually more of a problem of not showing up in big time moments last year. He kind of cost us the first Kansas City game and had multiple drops in that Eagles game. So, and had a drop touchdown versus the Ravens. But yeah, there's a lot of things, this team could have done better last year. Things happen. He's still the best top 2 receiver of the league. That doesn't change that. But yeah, overall, so many things that, the entire squad can work on. I just think people here. I'll say this: I think Tua gets too much of the blame when they lose, and then sometimes people try to give him maybe too much success when they win. Because like, let's think of this: like the Eagles game last year. I thought Tua played really well in the Eagles game, and the Dolphins lost. And then I think it was the Giants game. I think the Giants game, we pretty much just like it wasn't like we were ever going to lose that game. We kind of blew them out. But I don't think Tua played well at all. I think that was it was a down game for him. But that's kind of just how it rolls. Losses you blame them, wins you give them all the praise. But it's not always that simple. Win-loss prediction? Usually I don't like do too many predictions. Like when it comes to win-loss, I usually just like give it a range. I think we're like in the 11 to 12 win range. But there's always so much things that play into that. You never know with injuries. So I would say usually I would say we're like in the 11 to 12 though, if I had to guess. 1A, 1B, Hill, Jettas. Yeah, they just bring different things. I think Jettas is more well-rounded, especially with like his ability. I think Jettas is stronger at the catch point, but I think with the effect Tyreek has on the defenses with his explosiveness, like I don't think anyone matches up to that. That's why I usually would take Hill as the number one. Bills took a step back, it seems, but Allen got our number. Rodgers, new coach, New England. Yeah, I do think the Bills took a step back a little bit. I don't think it's as big as everyone said. I do think the Bills are still the biggest competition for the division, specifically for the Dolphins. They've always struggled with Buffalo, so that will be the battle to watch out for. I think the Jets will be better than they were last year, but Rodgers doesn't look right to me, and I'm just like, to me, he has a lot to prove. I think Rodgers, Hall of Fame quarterback, but like a 40+ year old coming off Achilles injury, I think it's gonna be tough for him to come back, and he doesn't look 100%. Defense, I actually think personally, Kevin, I actually think the defense got better overall personally. I think D tackle room, got worse with Wilkins. I think they added more depth so they can have more of a rotation. I think the defensive success though will really come down to the scheme. Will the scheme be better than what Fangio's was last year? I think that's really the big difference. Yeah. Oof. I knew when I brought up the Eagles game that someone would mention the pick Tua threw. That interception was not on Tua. That was on the receivers. They ran the wrong route, and if you go back and watch it, two receivers ran their route to the exact same spot, and one of the receivers wasn't supposed to be there. And then the corner that got the pick, Darius Slay, I believe. So yeah, that interception was not on Tua. There's other picks that you could have pointed to that were definitely on Tua, definitely his fault, but that one was not. I think, that's why I think when people just look at base stats, it annoys me because not all interceptions, not all sacks are created equal. It's like you'll see a sack, like you look at a stat like, man, this guy had 2 sacks, but then you watch the film and it'll be like, oh, he had 2 sacks, but it was a guy, the quarterback was running around in the pocket for 5 seconds. He didn't even really win his 1-on-1 quickly, and then he got a sack. Or it'll be like an interception, like, oh, the ball was dropped by his receiver and picked off. Like, his receivers ran the wrong route on that play specifically. It never should have even come to that. So that interception was not into it. Tua played phenomenal in that Eagles game. I don't care what anyone says. I've watched the film so many times of that game. He was great in that game. They just Dolphins went down O-line early. Defense played okay. The rest of the offense around Tua did not play very well. Tyreek dropped a touchdown. Also, the refs were probably the biggest problem in that game, honestly. The refs, that was probably the most screwed the Dolphins got by the refs in a game last season. Brooks makes the RB room. If they keep 4, Brooks has a chance. Because I think, the 3 are locked. Obviously, Wright, Achane, Mostert. If they keep 4, Brooks has a chance to, I would say, to get over Jeff Wilson. But I wouldn't bet on it. Personally, I'd probably keep Brooks over Jeff Wilson at this point. I think, there's some more upside there. And I think, a reason I like Brooks for this team is he actually played some fullback snaps last year in that one game and actually looked pretty decent. So I think there's some, versatility that you could possibly find there too. So why throw it? Because Tua didn't know, like when he threw the ball, like when he released it, the other route hadn't happened yet because Waddle ended up, I'm trying to think, it was like Mostert ran like a wheel and then Waddle ran like a slant and go, and they both ended up in the same spot. I think Waddle was supposed to break across the middle personally. So when Tua ended up throwing it, Waddle hit the slant. So he hadn't done like the go back part back to the fade. And so when he threw it, that ball, he wasn't even in that area. So he wasn't expecting it to happen. It wasn't like something he would have seen. He would have just had to guess that his receivers would mess that one up. But yeah. And the Dolphins throw was that can be like the problem with anticipation throws. Like obviously they do it a ton. Sometimes when you anticipate, that means like you and your receivers have to be on the same page. That's why sometimes these negatives, they happen. The interceptions, a lot of times anticipation, that's where you can get yourself into trouble. But they had so many big plays off of it. You got to, take it. Has anyone picked up Cedric? I don't think Ced's been picked up. At least I don't remember. Mostert was all, yeah, that was the play. Yeah, I think it probably would have got called illegally contacted Irving, but they, since it was intercepted, I think it was literally like caught as he was getting illegally contacted, so they're not going to throw a flag on that. It was caught by another guy. But I think they might have called either, PI or whatever, if the ball had reached Mostert, Yeah, Brooks looked good as like a fullback. Like I don't think he'll be like a traditional fullback, but I do think it would be interesting because he did like he was being used as like almost like an H back in that game. It was either the Giants or the Panthers game. I can't remember off the top of my head. I think it was the Giants game. But Ingold was hurt. Dolphins were kind of beating them up, so they put Brooks in, and he had some good blocks. He even pancaked at the end. And I think if you have a fullback that has running back experience, because like think of all the times we've like dumped the ball off to Ingold down in the flat. Imagine if he actually, because Ingold's a good player. I really like what he brings to the team. But imagine if he had like a skill set of like Chris Brooks with the ball in his hands. It'd be pretty interesting. Brooks wouldn't make it to the practice squad. I think Brooks could. It just depends. I think preseason's everything. Like last year, the Dolphins kept 5 running backs initially, and then they cut. They didn't cut, but they kept 5 initially, so then they could put Jeff Wilson on like a injury list. I forget which one it was. So then they kept 4. Basically, they kept 5 initially, and then they brought back McKinley at safety. But Brooks made the initial team because Brooks looked so good in preseason. So I think that's what it comes down to. If Brooks has another good preseason, I think it's pretty likely he would get picked up. But I think, if he has a whatever preseason, scouts might remember last year's preseason. So I think there's still a chance he would get picked up. But overall, I do like the prospect of keeping Chris Brooks around. And I think the team is looking into it. Plus, he kind of brings a different skill set. Yeah. If Chop, Duke, to answer your question about Chop, if Chop only has 3 sacks this year, is he considered a reach? To me, I'm not basing it on sack numbers. As I said earlier, I think sacks are kind of overrated in a sense. Not like sacks are great when you get them, like across the board, but as a stat for like grading a player, I think they can be overrated because, like I always look back on remember the season where Olivier Vernon had like double-digit sacks? If you go back and watch, like a lot of his sacks were created from Cam Wake getting the initial pressure. So I think pressure is so important, like overall when it comes to grading players, looking how they're winning. So if he's up there just creating disruption, I don't really care what his sack number is, but if he's not like creating disruption in those sub-package situations, then I would have my worries. So I don't think it really matters too much what his sack count is overall, as long as he's creating high disruption. Because then if you're creating high disruption, sacks will come eventually. Because like Olivier Vernon, after that high sack season, got paid a bunch of money, and he never lived up to that because he was never like, he was a decent player, but he was never that good to like what his sack number was. It was just Cam Wake was dominant, and he got so many, like he was getting double teamed, but he was still forcing everyone else to Vernon's side. Like so many times where the QB had to step up in the pocket and go towards Vernon because of Cam Wake's initial move. Do you think McDaniel has any new schemes for the NFL this year? I mean, it will still be the same scheme, but I know what you're saying. You're saying like any new, new play calls, new tricks. I'm sure there will be something. Like McDaniels always seemed to evolve. He even talked about it in the interview. I don't know if it was recent, but he talked about how the teams have like defenses got way better, matching his pre-snap motions. So I'm kind of excited to see, how he mixes things up. I'm sure we'll still be a heavy motion team too, but I wonder if he'll change up like different alignments. And I do expect the Dolphins have kind of been the innovators when it comes to the new seasons once they've gotten McDaniel. So I'm excited to see the new play calls because last year we had a completely different running game, and it seemed like week to week they would change like little nuances, little wrinkles. Like they started doing like the fake dive pitch with their running backs later on, and that was like a new wrinkle. Obviously, we had like the cheetah motion or the exit or whatever people are calling it. There's a bunch of different names for it. That we used in week 1 versus the Chargers, and everyone's still. I don't know what it's gonna be, but that's another one where I'm like excited to see because McDaniels brings a lot to the team. I feel like our offense was much more efficient when Ingold was involved. I'd love to see him used more this season. Yeah, Ingold. I feel like Ingold was, especially in the 2022 season, I feel like Ingold was huge. Like I feel like when he was like the unsung hero. He's always been like the unsung hero to the team, and he definitely, I think, helps with versatility too. Because he low key, he has been our tight end too as well. He's our starting fullback, but he was low key the tight end too out there with like the way they would align him and move him. He's definitely a big part of the running game. Ingold was not very well, but he was used. Yeah. I still think last year's Cleveland game was McDaniel's best play calling game. They had no answer for what we did, and Myles Garrett was accused of. Oh, you're McDaniel's first year, right? Yeah, I'd have to think about it really to see what I would think McDaniel's best game is, but that would definitely be in the conversation for play calling because the Browns had no chance that game, and Myles Garrett was a non-factor. Dolphins do a very good job of actually slowing down the other team's like edge number 1 with their play calling. The 2024 version of the no-look shovel pass, yeah. The Dolphins will always be adding new wrinkles. I'm sure of it. I think a lot of things will look different. I think McDaniel is a big tape guy. He'll study a lot of tape. And I think another thing is I don't mind them just kind of going back to the basics because I think there was times last year where the Dolphins kind of did more of the basic things, especially early on in games, keeping defenses honest. I think that would have helped out a lot. So like new wrinkles for sure, but also it's fine, just throw a quick option route, get your guy isolated in the slot and take advantage of that too. Yeah, sacks are nice, but pressure and win rates are critical. Yeah, I think that's like the true way to evaluate edge play because sacks can be a little misleading. Like sometimes, obviously, you'll watch a sack and it'll be a guy winning quickly and getting off the edge, and it would have been a quick pressure, but he actually got the sack. And obviously that's a great sack, but then there's times it's different. And sometimes you would have got a sack, but the quarterback sees how quickly you won and just throws it away too. That can always change things. Yeah. Yeah, like Chubb and Phillips, I'm pretty sure were rated very highly in pass rush win rate, and they weren't kind of getting their sacks early on, and then the sacks started coming as things, went on down the line. I want to see more handoff to speed guys, jet sweeps, reverses. I guarantee you that Jonnu Smith will get some rushes, man. Jonnu Smith is going to get some jet sweeps or something because he's gotten some throughout his career. I feel like he'll get it. Dolphins run jet sweeps and reverses. I mean, they did it with like A-Chan. They ran a lot of that stuff. And I don't mind doing that stuff, but I also don't mind going back to the basics too. Any news on Simmons? Talking about Justin Simmons? Yeah, I think he's still in the market. I think he was tweeted. He did do like an eye emoji about someone tweeting him about the Dolphins picking him up. So I mean, if you're taking that as news, I wouldn't put I don't know if that changes too much, but I don't know if the Dolphins go after him. I don't know if they have the cap space. I mean, they have the cap space to make that move, but when you have to consider all the other moves they have to make down the line, they have to still sign the rest of their draft class. And I think they might want to keep some extra money to roll over potentially, or like if injuries happen during the season, we'll see. Yeah, I like that, Irving. Yeah, some more mesh rail. Always some more mesh stuff. I think having more mesh is a great man beater. I think Dolphins need to have some more zone beating stuff because they just have receivers and the weapons that absolutely destroy man coverage. Um, and beating some cover 2 man as well, which really starts with your running game. Donald and Irene, right, I love your podcast, your insight and info. Question: would you agree the Finns' measure of success is their display of physical toughness as opposed to their finesse, especially last season? I think I don't know if it's as simple as that. Like when it comes to like the finesse, because the Dolphins are considered like a finesse team due to their play style, and I do think there was like time, specifically the last game of the playoffs last year in that cold, the Dolphins could have played with some more physical toughness. But I don't think like as a whole like season, the Dolphins were like some pure finesse team, pure like they didn't play with enough toughness as well. Like if you watch the film, they're actually pretty, they actually started dominating versus the run. They were one of the highest rated run teams as well, which I think usually shows a good sign of toughness. I do think it's something they can add to. But when it comes to like measuring the success, we'll see. I think when it comes to 2024, I think we'll see. I think they tried to, add to that as well with this team, adding some more physical toughness, especially with the guys who they can get the ball in the hands of. Because they obviously have Tyreek and Waddle who are great with the ball in their hands, and I think play pretty tough for their size. But I think adding guys like Jonnu Smith, Jalen Wright, definitely can take some punishment, can also deal out some punishment, which I think will help out picking up some extra yardage. Okay. The way I saw last McDaniels ring is good. Good point. He's supposed to have a good year last season. Yeah, Easy did get hurt. Week 2, and he was kind of a guy. I think, Easy, you could see some of those new wrinkles used for Easy because he was getting some of those early on, and then the injuries happened. That's a good take. Finn's take with CB. I agree with that. It's something that McVay is very good at. If you go watch the Rams offense, they do a very good job of getting a receiver, like especially a receiver as like an extra, and using like running duo and stuff. I don't know if the Dolphins will go quite that far, but I would have loved if the Dolphins were able to get I did talk about them getting like that type of receiver in the offense, and Easy is would be that player, someone who's a bigger body and they can use to block in those scenarios. Like Craycraft is probably the best blocker on their team, and Easy has some. If you watch him in the preseason, he has some pretty good blocking reps. I think it's more of a consistency thing with him. That's why I was like, Dolphins get like a Jawan Jennings, but he was a restricted free agent. But that's a good shot. I could see that being the case. Maybe they do it with a Fortson or something. I mean, he's not a great blocking tight end, but if he's used as like a receiver, it's fine. But yeah. What's up, Mountie? How you doing? Tyndall making any progress under Reaver? From what I've heard through the camp, it seems like Tyndall's been a pretty standout player. Looks like he's playing fast. I know Travis Wingfield talked pretty highly of him. I think especially in the OTAs, I think he was getting some love. So we'll see if I've talked about it. I think this is Tyndall's sort of his prove it year. I'm not saying like it's his last chance ever to make it in the league, but it's kind of that year to prove it. Usually you get 3 years to develop, 3rd round pick. And he was always a guy that kind of needed that development. That's why, like, when the Dolphins drafted him, I was kind of more on the Leo Chanel side of things, and he's been pretty good linebacker for the Chiefs. More of a run stopper, but he was more like NFL ready. Tyndall was like more of a straight line, needed to work on his instincts. He was more run and chase type of guy. So we'll see if he develops. Definitely needs, he has the burst, speed, and physicality part of his game down, but I think instincts specifically, when it comes to processing run concepts and in coverage, that can help it out. Easy is so injury prone and very unlucky. I wouldn't say I don't know about injury prone, because really the first year he just didn't play because he was a rookie, and then the second year he just got a neck injury and was out the whole year. So I think it's a little early to say he's injury prone, but yeah, I get what you're saying. Tua talked about losing weight in order to be more mobile and be able to extend plays. I have mixed feelings about that. What's your take on it? I actually think it's kind of key to Tua's next step. Obviously, you wanted him to stay healthy. I don't think the weight thing really affected like the concussions. I think the jiu-jitsu stuff will help him avoid the concussion injuries. I think maybe the adding weight maybe protected him from like some lower body injuries type stuff. And like last year, the reason I kind of am optimistic about it, because I do think that's where he needs to elevate his game to the next level, get a little more of that twitch back. He doesn't need to be like, he's never going to be that, big off script guy. But if he adds a little bit of that element too, which I think he will, like you can go back and watch some of his early film. That was a bigger part of his game than it was this past season. So I think it's important, but obviously you got to stay healthy. And the reason I kind of feel optimistic he can is because if you look at last year, he didn't take a ton of hits due to how quickly he gets rid of the ball. So if he's able to, just be smart about it, like if he was able, like be smart, like, hey, this is the opportunity I have to actually avoid and make this guy miss, and then you deliver it without taking the big hit. That's kind of, the big thing. But yeah, we'll see. Yeah, we get Tyndall. Interested to see how that all ends up playing out. Also talked about the rubber band theory. Tua working with John Beck, and I think it's the 3D QB Academy or whatever. I know it's 3D QB, but yeah, John Beck, and his mechanics definitely look different. So obviously, still expect like the same like anticipation, accuracy from Tua, but expect his mechanics to look different. I think everything looks a little more smooth and has a little more snap on it. I don't think he's gonna like drastically increase his velocity, but I do think he'll look different in that remark. And then obviously, the weight gain will definitely at least partially change some of his game too. And then yeah. Who will return kicks? BB, MW, JW. I assume you're talking about Braxton Berrios, Malik Washington, Jalen Waddle. I actually think with the new rules, I wouldn't be surprised if it's one of, or you might also mean Jalen Wright. I wouldn't be surprised with the new rules if it's one of the running backs. Like, and with the new rules, I think it's 2 returners now. I wouldn't be surprised if Berrios makes the team. I expect Berrios to be back there. If he doesn't, because I think there's a chance he doesn't with how many receivers there are, I kind of expect to see some of the running backs like Achane and Jalen Wright. Plus, it was like the research they did, like the injury chances on this kickoff return play, like drastically dropped. So I think they might feel more comfortable, putting your guys out there that actually play significant snaps. So we'll see. Let's see. I think the neck strength is what affected Tua in regards to the concussions. Yeah, I think, well, the jiu-jitsu thing is like, clearly he would hit the ground and like, yeah, his neck would snap back. That definitely, neck strength could play a part. And then, yeah, I also think like, he would just like started to just roll out of it too, which definitely plays it. People still arguing about Tua. It's a classic, We'll see. We shall see how it plays out. I think that's all on the mandatory minicamp stuff. I was like reading through all what McDaniel said. Let's see if is there anything else people want to talk about? Maybe what any of the players said. I know Tyreek and Waddle were making some jokes. Tua clearly, I wouldn't say like he was like, he even said he wouldn't say the word frustrated. He said antsy is what he would talk about it. But yeah, contract stuff seems to be, kind of just wants to get it over with. How can you pay a guy the fan base is 50-50 on? Shaking my head. Because the team doesn't give a fuck what the fan base thinks. They're just evaluating what they see. And I'll say this. The team doesn't agree with your side of the fan base. And I wouldn't say the fan base is 50-50 on Tua. I would say it's more like 70-30, 80-20, but the minority side is a very loud minority. They are very much against Tua. Tua has been such a divisive player. It's very, very interesting to see. Do you like a left guard, right guard? And does those worry you? I would say left guard, I expect to be Isaiah Wynn. I feel pretty comfortable with that as long as he's healthy. I don't know about his health situation. I think I made a video on Isaiah Wynn the other day. I think Wynn definitely looked. I actually thought Wynn was way more important than I even remembered because if you look at the Dolphins' pass protection scheme, it actually changed pretty drastically without Wynn out there. They didn't feel as confident, just like half sliding away or to the right and like leaving the left guard on an island. That like rarely happened anymore, and they really had to like use full slides or like heavily use play action even more than they usually do. So I think Wynn via left guard helps. And to me, I've been saying this for a while. I actually think Jack Driscoll will be the right guard. I just think kind of feel similar to him about Isaiah Wynn, especially when it comes to like his athleticism, his fit in the scheme. So that's my guess right now is Isaiah Wynn at left, Jack Driscoll at right, and then that could change if they sign someone. I don't know. I think our fan base underestimates the Jets and Aaron Rodgers. A healthy Jet Aaron will be a worry. Thoughts? Yeah, I think the only thing is I don't know if Rodgers is healthy. I feel like in all the videos I've seen, it looks like he doesn't look the same. Like because he's always been a guy to like throw off that back foot type thing. It always feel he just looks more uncomfortable to me still. So I think the Jets will be better than they were last season. I said that, but I just feel like Rodgers won't be as good as they think. A 40-year-old plus quarterback coming off an Achilles injury, I think is going to hurt more than they expect. But I do think the Jets still have one of the best defenses in the league, so you have to respect that always. And I still, in even with Rodgers injured, that he'll be better than what they had last season. The whole league thinks Tua is shitty except Dolphins fans. Are you the whole league, as in like the people in the league, like in the NFL, or are you talking about like fans? Because it doesn't really matter what fans are saying. Because like, trust me, my man, I've probably watched more Tua film than 99.999% of people. And I'm not saying like I'm right, 100% right all the time, but Tua is much better than most fans give him credit for, specifically for this team when it comes to this scheme. I've done a million breakdowns on him. I'm not trying to, say that he's a flawless player. Like he definitely has some of his issues, but there's it's I'm trying not to be a douche about this, How do I say this nicely? That's whatever, man. I've talked about it too long. I think when it comes down to it, like I'm fine with people thinking like it blows my mind when people say Tua is like bad, like horrible. Because then I'm like, what are we watching? Like I get if you don't think he's like elite or very good, you think he's like a solid NFL quarterback. I can respect that. I can respect when people, but like when people to me are like, oh, he shouldn't even play in the NFL, it blows my mind. Like they're like, that guy's a backup. I'm like, okay, then we just don't know what we're talking about. Tua is a bum. Thank you, Joe Morales, for this insightful take. Okay. That is just not true, V21. Every QB you do a deep dive on. Well, gotta love when it turns into this, Okay, so what's up, Grant? How you doing? Yeah, I mean, most of the takes that you see about Tua from other teams, yeah, like I know they're not actually watching the film, so it doesn't really bother me. Honestly, most takes on Tua don't really bother me anymore. I feel like I've been desensitized to it all. And I think there's takes that are definitely fair. Like I've had my criticisms of his play, and there's things that he needs to improve. think losing the weight is something he needed to do, because I do think he needs to be able to create more off script. I think that could limit an offense at times. But I think with the things they do on script within the system, it definitely helps out. The organization has not been good at their job for a long time now. The plenty of options to be had, but they have not been right yet on the final product. The question of the organization is valid. Yeah, but this organization, see, to me though, when people are like, "Oh, the Dolphins have been bad for 20 years," but I'm just like, but this is a new team. You know, like, to me, this is like McDaniel's been here for 2 years, and that it's like a different organization once you change your head coach. Like, yeah, Greer's been around for a while, but he hasn't been the GM for 20 years. Did you watch Tannehill? Right, what was all the say with Tannehill? Heck, Henny, Beck. Well, Tannehill got some hate, but I mean, he obviously got hated on. But the Tua hate feels. I'm trying to understand. I always try to understand. I'm like, why did he always get so much hate when he came into the NFL? Why was he so divisive? There's such a divide between opinions. And I never quite figured it out. I don't know. I'm gonna put my finger on it. Well, with Tannehill, there was. Let me do something real quick. Oh shit. Damn it. Okay. Why does this keep happening with my chat? Useful. Okay, well, my chat keeps fucking up, so I'm trying to read it. I'm not more really coming to know who's probably because after his third game he said the NFL was easy. Who said that? I don't think they're hating on me, Satoshi. But I mean, yeah. It's always interesting to see some of the people on Twitter who are known Tua haters. They give me a good laugh. I'll be honest. I think Twitter would be kind of boring without them. So I gotta give it to them. Some of them are absolutely clueless, and I know they've never watched a down of football and understood what's going on in their whole life. Tua is overrated. Do you actually think Tua is overrated? So you don't like Tua because you say in his third game he said the NFL is easy? Well, yeah, Jose, good point about the aesthetics things. I don't think it's it's because he doesn't have the, the big strong arm, he doesn't have the size. There are a lot of people who kind of think you have to have the arm strength. There's only one way to play quarterback when there's multiple different ways, That is a fair point that I do think some people definitely value that type of play style more. Yeah, I wouldn't say he's overrated. He has way too much hate to be overrated. Some people think he's terrible. I just don't think you can describe him as overrated. I'm gonna be honest, I don't even remember Tua saying any of that, so. I really don't remember that at all. I think you might have made that one up in your head, my guy. Yeah, I mean, some of the best QBs of all time don't have there's ways to be the best, and there's ways you can win in different ways. Look at the top quarterbacks in the NFL. A lot of them have very different skill sets. I think that's always nice. 50 million makes Tua overrated. Well, if you look at the market is the market. I mean, Jared Goff just got paid $50 million, and I think Jared Goff's better than Tua. I think it just depends how you look at it, especially because within a couple years he might be like super underpaid. You never know with how the cap raises. Okay, man. If your first reason for someone disliking Tua was saying he said the NFL was easy, if that's your biggest reason, you're fucking delusional. I'm sorry. That's the dumbest shit I ever heard. What? I'm sorry. I was trying to be nice. But like some of these takes are just I can't. It's so dumb. Like what? At least have a legitimate reason. Like, huh? Passed on Drew Brees because everyone wanted the scrambling quarterback. Either don't forget the whole Tua. Like every quarterback's a system QB. I want that to be known. Now some can play in multiple systems, but yeah. Well, if that's part of it, I think you need to probably move on from that because that was like 4 years ago, and I think that's pretty much not important. Tua said in NFL transition, he said, I expected it to be a lot harder, not that it's not hard. So he didn't say that it was easy. He said he expected it to be harder, but it is hard. So, gotta love when people try to quote things, but like, that is not what he said. But okay. You're right, Zim. Don't entertain the foolishness. But okay. Any questions? Anything to talk about? Minus Tua, because we talked about Tua for a long time. And then before we ended up here, because we've gone for a while. Talked about, the mandatory minicamps, obviously. Waddle looking sharp. Wingfield has Tua sharp. Achane looking good, especially on his receiving thing. We talked about Johnny Smith, Jody Fortson. Rip free speech? What do you mean? Everyone's saying what they want to say. I think I'll never understand that when I say, I feel like people say like, oh, I can't say what I want to say, but I just said what I wanted to say to them, I finally was saying how I felt. So. Ryder, do you think Eichenberg can be a solid starting right guard in this offense? I think Eichenberg is a serviceable backup. I think he gets a lot of hate. I think last year he showed he's better than probably he got credit for, but no, I'm not too confident with him as a starter. Linebackers, not sure. We talked about them a little bit. But yeah, I think Walker has looked pretty impressive from what we've heard with the mandatory minicamp. I'm very high on Jordan Brooks. I expect a big season from him. I think this scheme was kind of made for his skill set. And I think he's going to be one of the most important players on the defense. So I'm excited to see how that plays out. I don't know why we re-signed our special teams coach. Special teams, I feel like, I don't know enough about the details to really talk on it, but I'm not sure. I'm not there behind the scenes, so I have no idea why actually. Cam Smith, my guess is Cam Smith plays a lot this season actually. Maybe he doesn't start the season as third corner, but I think at some point he becomes that third corner, plays on the outside, and then they start moving like Ramsey, Fuller around. I think Ramsey's going to be the star. player, like that plays in the slot, plays down in the box, gets moved around a lot, uses that versatile skill set, which I think is huge. Better, do you call when Omar Kelly said that Tua is weird? Oh yeah, I do remember him saying that. But yeah. Probably not the you call a different opinion trolls. Is that directed towards me, Duke, or someone else? I don't think I called anyone a troll. But yeah, I mean, he definitely, I think he meant like, I feel like Tua is kind of socially awkward. That's probably what he should have said. Me neither. I'm done with the Tua talk for this afternoon. Well, teams use a kicker on kickoffs now, or an athlete who can kick. Well, Robbie, the Chiefs said they're probably going to use what's his name, right? The Justin Reed. But I don't know. I think teams might do that now. But you have to have someone who could still kick the ball. So I don't know how many guys are, if there's that many ex kickers around. But I think you could see, a couple teams try that out. I know Justin Reed didn't like dare Wale, the running back, do it last season or something. Ryder, any word on Brooks and when is he due to come back? Is there a spot for him on the squad? Are you talking about Chris Brooks? I think we talked about Chris Brooks earlier. If that's the Brooks you're talking about. But I think Brooks is good to go. But I did talk about like if because I've been saying I think the Dolphins should keep 3 running backs just based on how the roster would be. But if they do keep 4, I would rather keep Chris Brooks compared to Wilson. That's my opinion. Because I think if you cut Brooks with how he performed last year in the preseason, and I expect him to get a lot of work in this year's preseason and look pretty good. And we talked about like how he even played some snaps as a fullback. That would be pretty intriguing. Okay. Not going to read that. Who cares about the Wonderlick? Okay. Yeah, that's who I assumed you were talking about because you were talking about him like coming back and Chris Brooks had an injury. And I just talked about Jordan Brooks. Honestly, I don't know why PFF has I don't know why PFS has Jordan Brooks graded so low in coverage. That was like shocking me because I remember when I watched Brooks right away, I remember his coverage looked like that was the most impressive thing to me on his film was his coverage ability. So I think PFF, their grading scale is kind of flawed because I'm not sure where they got those coverage grades from because Brooks looked quite good in my opinion. Yeah. Cam Smith, another Greer bust? No, it's too early to say that. Cam Smith didn't even really play last year, and that was mainly due to the Fangio not liking him. So we'll see how it plays out. I mean, I have a lot more faith in Cam Smith than I do in like Channing Tindall or Eichenberg, who was also a second-round pick many years ago. Cam Smith will be, I think Cam Smith will be one of the top 3 corners. I think Fuller and Ramsey will be the obviously 1 and 2, but I think Ramsey will get moved around a lot, which will allow Cam Smith to be like playing on the outside. But if they need someone to play the nickel corner, then I think it would probably be Ko. I've had this play just playing in front of me. I realize I've watched Kevin Winston Jr. make this tackle like 80 plays in a row. I've just been staring at it. Cam Smith has a terrible work ethic, total bust. Do you know him? This is what I just don't we've heard, maybe something, but we don't know that. I've never met Cam Smith. I don't know what his work ethic's like. Personally, I just don't like saying those types of things without actual information to back it up, you know? But we'll see how it turns out. And apparently, Cam Smith, the last report that I saw on Cam Smith was he started working out for next season the day after the Chiefs game when they lost in the playoffs. So it's in his scouting report, but whose scouting report? That's the question. There's probably thousands of scouting reports on the internet, you know? Oh yeah. Better any word on how our rookie guard is doing Ohio State? Oh, I thought I saw something on Matthew Jones the other day. I don't remember what it was. But I do think Matthew Jones, like, if any of the UDFAs, I think O-line wise, he does low-key have a chance, but it's still outside. I don't know. But he is one that definitely intrigues me the most for the practice squad, at least. Scheme fit wise, too, and playing as a right. It's in his scouting report. Read it. But whose scouting report? Is that just some random person on the internet scouting report who thinks that he has a bad work ethic? We don't know that. Like, have you ever met the guy? I hate when people like just start making this stuff up. Like, yeah, there's questions. Maybe he does have a bad work ethic. I don't know, but we truly do not know that. Yeah, they said the maturity issues was something I read about him. They said, but that doesn't mean work ethic problems. Plus, we don't even know if the maturity problems are even true, you know? Yeah. People hate PFF until it supports their point. I'm not a big PFF person anyways. I watch my own films, so I don't really need to use PFF. But yeah, people do use it to push the narrative, whether it's positive or negative for a player. Okay, I think unless anyone has any final questions, I think we're good. I'll let this roll through. Let's see. Yeah. Oh, ooh. I'm moving my chat real quick. Who gets traded? I don't know if anyone gets traded. I think I've talked about like who would get traded. Maybe like Barrios for a late round pick or something. I have no idea. Yeah, okay. Later, guys. It was an interesting one. Peace.